Hello and welcome to Fly With Your Shadow. I'm Jeff Robson. This show deals with music, mental illness, and the mess that COVID-19 has made of it all. I'm coming to you from my home in Winnipeg, Manitoba. This is not a professionally and perfectly produced podcast with a big team behind it. You'll have to forgive some imperfections because it's just me in my basement talking to you and my guests about things that I think are important and interesting. This week's show will contain frank and open discussions of mental illness, suicide, and related topics. If these topics might be difficult for you to hear about, I urge you to get help right away. The right help can and will change your life. There's a section on the show's website at flywithyourshadow.com where you can find some organizations and resources that can and will help you. You can also reach out to me anytime at flywithyourshadow@gmail.com if you want to talk or need suggestions for where to turn. You should call 911 right away if you or someone you know is in immediate danger or needs urgent medical care. Don't wait. If someone's in crisis, you need to act immediately. Always take a suicide threat or fear very seriously.
You lose me, Kane. Just when I feel like it's falling apart, suddenly I turn and it's back in my heart again.
The music you've heard so far, the name of the show, and much of its inspiration comes from a singer-songwriter named John Bottomley. In 1995, Bottomley released an album called Blackberry, which remains one of my very favorite albums of all time. It's been a source of comfort and inspiration to me for more than 25 years. The song you just heard was called You Lose and You Gain, and it was John Bottomley's biggest hit and the one that introduced many of us to his music. 1995 was also a year that I had no intention of making it through. My mind was as troubled as it's ever been, and I felt no hope or joy. So I wanted to end my life, and I spent a lot of time planning that, but I'm thankful every day that I failed at that one. It's no exaggeration to suggest that Bottomley's album helped keep me here. After that album, John Bottomley kind of slipped off the public radar, but continued to make great records and write great songs. But like many people, I really wasn't aware of them. It wasn't until 2011 that I really became reacquainted with John Bottomley's more recent music. I'd heard that he'd released a new album called The Healing Dream, and I reached out to him and said that I was interested in playing the album on my music show, Tell the Band to Go Home. He was kind enough to send me a copy of the album to play. Shortly after I got it, on March 8th, 2011, John sent me an email with a review of the new album. For reasons I'll never understand, I didn't write him back. Less than a month later, on April 6th, John ended his life. When I first heard that he died and didn't know how, I was devastated. But when I found out more about what had happened, it really knocked the wind out of me. Somehow the guy who comforted me in my darkest hours had been struggling in the same way as I had, and I had no idea. I wish that I could have known and could have helped. I've lost more people to suicide since then, and every time I felt like there was something I should have done to help. Eventually that desire to help someone somehow led me here and to this show. John Bottomley's music means a lot to me, and he directly inspired me to create this show. But I never knew the guy. I never even saw him in concert. I wanted to know more about him, and I hoped I could come to understand more about why he died the way he did. Unfortunately, suicide deaths are the hardest ones to understand and come to terms with. There are no easy answers. I did, however, get a lot of great information about John from this week's guest.
I cannot hide the way I feel inside. Some things never change. Those feelings will remain.
Chris Bottomley here, and I'm a bass player, singer-songwriter who lives in Toronto. I come from a rock and roll background, but I also write, funk songs, reggae songs, folk songs, experimental stuff, instrumentals and whatnot. And I've been playing live for, last 30 years, so over the place in Canada and other places, and just working on a new record now.
Chris Bottomley is a fabulous bass player, singer, and songwriter. He's released albums on his own as well as with a collective known as Brainfudge. His diverse style incorporates elements of jazz, funk, reggae, rock and roll, and a whole bunch more. In the mid-1980s, Chris and his brother John Bottomley came to prominence with their band Tulpa. They officially released one album called Mosaic Fish. It's pretty experimental, edgy stuff compared to what John did later on.
I've seen you shatter dreams, and then you offered me wings. All right, Miss Lonely, you can fly down upon the howling sea.
You can hear a great deal of Tulpa music as well as Chris's solo work at his website, chrisbottomley.com. And you can buy that Tulpa album as well as many of Chris's on Bandcamp. Enough from me. It's time to hear the chat that I had with Chris Bottomley at the end of 2020. So I wanted to talk to you, really wanted to talk to you today to get a bit of insight into your brother John, who has had such a huge effect on me. I'm a huge fan of his work. I heard his stuff in 1995 when BlackBerry came out. And so that was my introduction to John, and it remains a record that I can't go very long without listening to that record. I just love everything that he's done, but that was kind of the the
pinnacle. Yeah,
that's what hooked me in for sure. And I think
it's a great record, man. It's my fave too.
Can you tell me a bit about growing up with John? Like, what was that?
Yeah,
were you guys super close and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, John. We were Air Force brats, right? I don't know if you knew that. My dad was in the Air Force, and so we lived all over the place. And I mean, we were all very close as kids. My dad got us playing soccer at an early age, so we played sports together, and we took piano lessons together, and we all grew up together. And then John and I, we were playing in bands in Germany, and then basically. It was kind of a cool upbringing, just moving all over the place, and we had our music. We always had piano to practice and that sort of thing, and that just led to other things from there.
And what was it that drew you guys to music? Are your parents musical, or was this just something that they felt you should do? Or
well, my mom, she studied piano when she was young. And she was a piano teacher, so it was we owe it to her basically. She got us both into piano.
Oh, nice.
When we lived in England, and we lived in England as kids, and so when we were there, we had our first lessons, and and basically wherever we went, we just had different piano teachers.
And then you just I know when I was a kid and I took music lessons, it was work for me, and I eventually stopped. But you guys just loved it and just couldn't stop playing music. Is that how it worked?
Well, no, to be honest with you, it was work, but I think it was more work for John. I had maybe a quicker aptitude for it than he did. John was good, but he had to work at stuff, even learning guitar and that sort of thing, so sometimes it comes easier to some people than others, I guess.
Right. Yeah. And then at what point did you guys get interested in making your own music? How did that come about?
Well, John and I started playing rock and roll in West Germany. We were mostly doing cover songs. We weren't writing songs at all in those days. It wasn't until we moved to Toronto in 78, 79, that we started writing our own stuff, because at that point we just realized that's the only way you're going to get somewhere in music is if you write original music. So we'd already been playing cover songs for about 5 years, right? So we thought, well, what the heck, we better start branching out, and in our own crude, simple way, we started booking sessions at different studios when we, around 1980, after the first year that we got to Toronto. And then, and it just got better from there, basically. We were just very determined to become good at, playing our instruments and singing and writing good tunes,
So the band that I know about and many people do was Tulpa.
John and I were just doing things before that. We had a bunch of guys we were playing with up in North York in Toronto in our first year. Alex Radiff, who actually plays in a band in Toronto called Donkey,
Mm-hmm.
He was one of the first guys that we played with. We were just doing small gigs up there in northern Toronto. We didn't start getting really serious about it until, see, I moved downtown and I started going to Ryerson University, right?
Uh-huh.
And John went to Fanshawe College in London, but he quit that after a year, and then he moved back to Toronto, and that's when I met Mike Severin, the drummer of Tulpa in Toronto, and John joined us. And that's when we started Tulpa, and we started becoming serious songwriters from there on in, basically.
Mm-hmm.
We spent every waking hour thinking about music and trying to get a show together and that sort of thing.
So how long did that band last?
It lasted about 7 years. Like,
Really?
we started around 81, 82. We went to like 88, 89.
Wow.
Early 89, yeah. And so, I mean, we basically had about, 7 years of really good stuff. The last 2 years weren't as good,
And is that kind of how it ended? It just kind of petered out. It wasn't really working anymore, or why did that band?
Well, John and I were sort of having some disagreements about musical direction, and it wasn't. I mean, Mike Severin, the original Tulpa drummer, when we were with him, it was the most cohesive. I mean, that was Tulpa to me, was John and I and Mike Severin.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That was and that was together for like 6 years, and then we let Mike go because we were having some problems, and then Glenn Milsham from Blue Rodeo played with us for a year, and then he started playing with Blue Rodeo, and after him, Great Bob Scott came and played for a year. But so those were great years with Glenn and Bob, but it didn't have the same focus as it did with Mike. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those were the glory years. Those are the glory years for us, is when Mike was in the band.
Yeah.
It was a different kind of chemistry.
And do you feel like that band accomplished all that it could have or should have, or is it something that you kind of wish that there'd been more?
No, I wish we had done more. I think both John and I and Mike, the three of us, we were really ambitious and determined, and we wanted to do a lot. We wanted to break into the States and Europe and stuff like that. And really, the reason we stopped was just because of money. I mean, we just didn't have the money to keep it going.
Right. Yeah.
We didn't have a deal. We didn't have a deal at the time, right? We did everything on our own. We produced our own music, came up with the funds, and then just licensed it out to labels, right?
Yeah. Right.
So we didn't have a label we were signed to. It was always just licensing deals, and we didn't really have a lot of dough at the time. And we were self-managed, right? So
okay.
Just getting the volume of work to keep going.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, by the end, with just the changes in sort of writing and direction and stuff like that. I mean, bands usually only stay together for about 5 years.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Most of the time. So we had a good 5 or 6 years where it was really, really intense, and we were determined to really take over the world. We were pretty idealistic, and like we loved being on tour. We were always kind of bummed out every time we came back to Toronto because we wanted to be out there touring.
Right.
It's like, oh, we don't have any more gigs. We got to go back to Toronto. Damn,
yeah.
So, but I can tell you, Jeff, though, that the feeling that I had and that we had in that band is nothing like it. Like, I'll never have that exact feeling again,
Yeah. Yeah. There's some great music that's come out of it. I really love that you have a lot of it up at your website where people can go and listen to some of that stuff.
Well, yeah, thank you very much. I tried to make it as comprehensive as possible in terms of the Tulpa history stuff that's there.
Yeah.
And, my catalog. I'm going to be putting up a bunch of live stuff from 20 years of live gigs up there over the next few months too. So we're just going to keep putting good stuff out there for people to enjoy.
And then you guys just kind of went your own ways with your own solo careers after the band fizzled out? Yeah,
I mean, John initially wanted me to play with him at the beginning of his solo career. Like, I didn't want it for Tulpa to break up, basically, right?
Yeah.
So when John went solo, it was just it just felt weird to kind of just do the same thing in a way for me.
Yeah.
Like I felt like if you're going to go that route, best thing to do is just do it on your own for a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it would be weird going from a partner to kind of working for him, I guess, right?
Yeah, and I mean, John came to me with an offer. He wanted me to play for him, but I was just kind of like, I was like, but the thing is, a lot like some of the songs on John's first record are actually Tulpa songs, right? Like She
Right.
Lay Down by the Water, that's a Tulpa song. In Solitude, that's a Tulpa song that was recorded at Grand Avenue Studios, right?
Mm-hmm.
So basically the agreement that we had was, rather than those songs sitting there and never being released on a Tulpa record, that we should put them on John's record. So, and in that way, I was still on the first record of his, which was nice. I appreciated that. And it was just better for him to do his thing. And we rejoined later on. Like I played on his Blackberry tour, right? In the band with Colin Linden and Gary Craig and Richard Bell.
Yeah, that must have been amazing.
It was actually. It was really amazing. It was great playing with Colin. Like I'd never played with him before. He's got some great live stuff. Great guitar sounds.
Yeah.
That he pulls out of his hat, and Gary and Sean Kilbride was also playing some drums. We did this. The funnest gig we did on that tour, it was just a mini tour, like 7 or 8 shows around Ontario kind of thing in Quebec. And we did this show in Morin Heights with Bare Naked Ladies and Philosopher Kings outside, and it was great. It was like 10,000 people, and John had that "You Lose You Gain," right? He had that hit out there, and it was just great. That was just the highlight of the whole thing,
So as he was off doing his own thing, like, did that affect your relationship as brothers, or were you guys still close the way you used to be, or?
Not really, no. I mean, during that time, I didn't really see him that much.
Yeah.
I was kind of doing my own thing anyways. During that time, he also moved out to Vancouver, right? I mean, John was going through a lot of changes. He was separating from his partner, and Tulpa was breaking up, right? So there was a lot of stuff going on, a lot of changes, a lot of growth, and I was just in my own zone, living in Parkdale, basically.
Right. Yeah.
Doing my thing. I was struggling with how do I become the best songwriter I can be at that time, because I mean, Tulpa was John and I writing songs together, and so when it was just like, oh my God, what am I going to do, man? How am I going to write songs on my own, right?
Yeah.
So it was me finding my legs, really, and I was just sort of concentrating on that, and I think John felt the same way too, because he had a label and everything, but he's still like, oh my God, I'm on my own. Like I've had Mike, these Tulpa guys around for the last 8 years, So it's a bit daunting, but also really freeing,
So did you have to work to try to do stuff that didn't sound like that band for yourself? Like, did you work to carve out your own thing apart from what you had been known for, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, the Tulpa songwriting, we went through a lot of different trajectories. We just kept writing and writing and writing over the years, and our stuff was constantly changing. Like there's a lot of stuff that didn't end up on records that we wrote that's pretty good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of recordings out there that we've never put out there, right? Like there's still some stuff that I'm trying to get up to snuff to put on the website.
Right.
So because I'm a bass player, I kind of write different than John was writing anyways. Like I mean, we both come from rock and roll, right?
Yeah.
We grew up with the Beatles and the Stones and the Who and Pink Floyd and all that great, European British stuff and whatnot. And so basically as a bass player though, I wanted to I was getting tired of rock and roll, to tell you the truth. I was like, okay, another guitar, So I started, I saw Bob Marley at the Maple Leaf Gardens, right before he died on his last tour. So that was a big cultural shift for me. Musically, started listening to tons of reggae during that time, and also a lot of you know, jazz music from America and soul music and stuff like that, funk music, right? So that was bound to come out in my early stuff, and I'm just more comfortable with that. So in a way, it was a conscious break from Tulpa. You know, that way too. It's just it's like, okay, I'm not doing the experimental King Crimson influenced
Yeah.
stuff anymore. Do you know what I mean? With
Yeah.
the weird time signatures.
Yeah.
Oh, although I love that stuff, it's really a lot of fun. But it's just time to break out of that a bit and go explore over here for a while.
So did you guys ever feel like you were competing against each other as solo artists or anything like that?
Not as solo artists, but maybe in Tulpa as writers and stuff like that. There's always a bit of sibling rivalry going on.
That pushes you to be better, though, right? I would think if you're.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does. We were always pushing ourselves to be better. I mean, the way we wrote was just basically, okay, you know, I'll bring this in, and you bring this in. If you're okay, you got a bridge. Oh, I'm stuck. You have a bridge? Yeah. Okay, I got a bridge. Okay, that's the bridge. You know, it was a very cooperative effort, but it's kind of like you just do what you can. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just do what you can and keep going.
So did you guys see each other a lot over the years, kind of after you went solo?
For the first couple albums, I didn't really see John that much until Blackberry, right?
Yeah.
He was out in Vancouver. Then we did that tour, and then we were always in touch after that for the most part. You know, always on the phone, you know, every few months talking about stuff or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But like, I would go out to Vancouver. I stayed at John's place out there for 8 months once. And we did some gigs together out there. It's just small sort of acoustic style stuff, right? And so yeah, and then of course we had that Tulpa reunion. I don't know if you knew we had a Tulpa reunion.
That must have been fun to kind of get that back together again.
It was, and it just kind of, you know, I didn't know if that it was really ever going to happen, you know, because it was like, okay, Tulpa was Tulpa, but I think it just sort of came together. Like, you know, we had been talking to Mike Severin about it, and at first of all, we didn't know how to approach it quite, because we'd had 2 or 3 drummers, right? So we just thought, okay, we'll get Mike. Mike will play drums, but we'll also get Great Bob Scott on drums, and then when Bob is drumming, Mike can play keyboards, because Mike plays keyboards also, right?
Oh yeah.
So that's kind of how we did the gig. And it was, we thought, well, the only way we can really do this is kind of just to have like Gary Top as the promoter. You know what I mean? So we got him on board, and that's kind of how it was put together, because we thought, well, at least we can get a good crowd here in Toronto and that sort of thing with him promoting the gig.
So that's pretty cool. So, and was there a good reaction? Like, were people excited to see the band again?
Yeah, it was really fantastic, Jeff. Like, we were all blown away. Like, I knew we knew that there would be some people there, but we didn't know there would be that many. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was a lot of people from the past. It was blasts from the past that you hadn't seen in a long time in Toronto. Oh yeah, you. I can remember you. Where have you been? You know. It was just fantastic. We had a really, really good night. And we wanted to keep going, actually. I mean, before John died, a few months before he died, him and I were on the phone talking about doing a new Tulpa record, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
We decided to just come up with 3 good songs each, and then to send those to each other, and then just take it from there. The thing is, after the show in Toronto, Gary Top was saying, I think you guys should keep going, you know?
Yeah.
And we all felt the same way. Like, we just wanted to get back together, because John and I had both kind of come full circle and matured as songwriters. So I think we were just kind of curious about what we could come up with together again, without any, you know, Tulpa was never about any kind of preconceived notions about what kind of music we should play. It's just like, look, okay, we come from rock and roll. You know, Mike comes from rock and roll and progressive rock. Let's just put something together and see what happens.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what happened. It just became this wild, crazy thing, the Tulpa Circus, you know?
Yeah.
There's a lot of humor in there too.
Yeah. So I guess the obvious kind of elephant in the room is, so John died. Was that unexpectedly? Did you guys know that he was in a bad place? What happened there?
No, not really. I mean, I I mean, what I can tell you, Jeff, is that, I mean, the last time I spoke to John was about 3 months before he died on the phone. And this is the conversation we had about, doing the Tulpa record and stuff,
Oh,
right?
wow. Yeah.
But I mean, when I was talking to him, he was a bit feeling a bit down and out, and I think that was why he phoned me. But there was nothing really specific about why he was feeling down. I think like everybody else, he was probably struggling with some aspects of his career and other things, maybe some personal stuff that I don't know about and still don't know about to this day, in a way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So there's still a lot of unanswered questions for you then?
Well, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think some of those questions will probably never be answered. And that's just the nature of taking your own life, really. You know what I mean?
I really do. It's, I think it's the hardest death to come to terms with. Out of anything, accident, cancer, whatever it is, I think it's easier to come to terms with those things than this. And I think it ends up causing the most problems in the end for a lot of people.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's not one person that was unaffected by it, including yourself, right? Like close family members, his son, like just, it's been difficult for a lot of people. It still is difficult for me, certain days, certain times. And, it's weird because at the time that it was happening, I was in a better place with it than I am now. You know what I mean? It's so strange how grief works in a lot of ways. It's just so strange. And you have no control over the cycles of how you feel about things, especially regarding, suicide and stuff like that. Right.
Yeah.
You're reminded of things and, or you could get triggered, whatever.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for me, it's just, I just try to be in a good place with it and just, really appreciate, having been able to play with him and being his brother, that's basically what I take away in the good, positive way. Right.
Yeah. It's so weird. It's so hard to, like, I never met John. I don't even think I ever saw him in concert. And weirdly, coincidentally, I'd never corresponded with him at all until about a month before he died, less than a month before he died, actually. I had heard that he had a new record, and I just sent this email and said, hey, if you want to send me a copy, and if you're ever out this way, I'd love to meet you and all that. And he sent a nice email back, and I felt really good about it. And then less than a month later, I heard about this, and even though I didn't know him, it brought up such sadness and grief for me. And I think I went through a lot of the things that people do in these situations. Like maybe I should have sent him another email, or maybe I should have done this or that, and maybe it would have helped, but you never really know, do you? And it seems so irrational now, but I think these are the things that we go through when we hear that somebody has taken their own life.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was, like I say, a shock. Like, it was a shock to me. It was a shock to our whole family, right? It was a shock to you. It was a shock to a lot of people. I had no warning. There was no, like John, it was completely out of character.
Really? So he had no history of mental illness or anything like that?
No, not at all. Really? And not in a million years would I have thought that John would have done something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. So, John was an artist. I mean, they have highs and lows. You know what I mean? It's like it's like he's human, right?
It must be especially hard when you don't see it coming, or you don't know that, that's where he's headed.
Well, I think these are the things that people grapple with when they lose a close one, close loved one to suicide, right? Like these are the things that we grapple with. These are the kind of questions that we grapple with in the aftermath of stuff. Like, could I have done something different? Or, so, I mean, you just have to go through some soul searching and try to come to a good place about all that stuff,
I know that there's been some kind of problems behind the scenes, I guess we'll say, on the family front as a result. Did it tear people apart, or did it cause, great divisions? And
Well, yeah, it did for sure. It tore a lot of people apart, and I'm not really going to get into the details
yeah,
about
yeah,
that stuff because it's not. I mean, I don't know. A lot of it's just bullshit, to tell you the truth. But it's unfortunate, that stuff went down. But what I realized, and I mean, I know prior experience with, losing someone close to me like that, even to suicide. But what I realized is that when people die, that some people get really weird, and like grief can cause people to do really weird things,
yeah, that is
out
for
of
sure.
character and spiteful things, and
Yeah.
not always good things, and you might be really taken aback by those things, and you're like, okay, but I just realized that the greedy ones are the first out of the gate. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like this kind of thing. So, without, being too negative about stuff like that, I mean, it caused a problem, and we're still trying to work it out,
Yeah.
But I can tell you that, we have a great relationship with John's son, Levon.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about him because he was fairly young when John died, was he? Teenager
Yeah,
or something?
he was a minor. Yeah, he was a minor, and he, it really affected him.
Yeah.
He was young. He didn't really know how to deal with it, I'm sure. Like, and I still think, it's very difficult for him
Oh, yeah,
to accept a lot of the stuff that happened as a result of that too.
for sure.
And so, but we have a great relationship with Levon,
That's great.
and Levon and I, we talk regularly, about his dad, about his music and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
we're trying to get some kind of, retrospective together, and keep stuff going.
That would be so good. It's something that's been like, his music is so hard to find. Like, I realized recently that you can download a whole bunch of them from iTunes, but you can't stream it anywhere, and you can't. I bought a bunch of CDs from CD Baby a while ago, but CD Baby's gone. So a lot of his music is kind of, unless you know where to look for it, it's tragically hard to find. So a retrospective or something is, in my opinion, long overdue. Well,
there's a reason for that, Jeff, and part of it is that because his estate is in dispute, and
right.
we have to seek permission from other people in order to put stuff out, and we don't want them making any money off it.
Yeah.
Basically. So, and in terms of the rights, they're in dispute, and we're trying to fight it. Basically, we're trying to get the gumption together to deal with the court system again.
Yeah. I'm so sorry you had to go through all that, and it continues to be such a mess. It certainly doesn't make it any easier.
Well, I know, and the thing is a lot of it was completely unnecessary and stupid,
Yeah.
So I mean, but whatever, I can play John's songs live in my set.
Great.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that's how I keep his legacy going. We know that he's a really good songwriter, and it's unfortunate, like you say, that you can't find his stuff very many places.
Yeah,
and we're trying to change that, but we need to meet a rich person who's a lawyer.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It all just comes down to money at this point.
Yeah.
It's all about money, and things change. Like life's a fluid situation, right? So.
Sure, yeah.
We're trying to make stuff more available. It's just we have to go through some legal hurdles in order to do so right now.
Right.
So Levon and we've been talking about what we want to do and how we're going to go about it.
Do you want to talk a bit about your music these days? What's your musical life like?
Well, the live gigs have gone down to nothing.
Really?
COVID.
Why is that?
Yeah, we can't play live. So that's been a bit of a bummer. I haven't had a gig for 9 months, and I'm not really that comfortable with doing the video to Facebook or Instagram thing, because I need a band. I'm a bass player. I need a band, right?
It takes a certain kind of person to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, I play guitar too. I could play my songs on guitar. That's how I write them. But the thing is my live thing is basically as strong as the people that I play with, right?
Right.
Like I need a sax player, and I need all these other instruments to kind of make it work, energetically speaking. So I'm not doing the video thing, but I'm doing like I've been working on a new record. So in the spring I was recording like crazy. When COVID first hit. Then I had a bit of a lull for a while. And I've been back at it in the last couple of months, trying to finish stuff off. I've done most of the vocals and stuff. I'm at the point where I'm going to add drums and horns section now. Basically, this record is like it's a return to my rock roots. The
Really?
songs they're a lot simpler. There's some ballads even, and it's interesting though. It's pretty cool. I'm pretty happy about it so far.
Yeah, because like you alluded to before, you've done such diverse things in your catalog. So
yeah, I just want to keep growing as an artist, as a songwriter. Basically, I mean, I come from rock and roll, so I mean, it's not a straight ahead rock and roll record. There's some rock tunes, and there's going to be a bit of funk and reggae stuff on it again.
Yeah.
It's different though, just in terms of simplicity. It's not as dense in terms. There's more space in it. Like this record, I didn't start off with bed tracks live off the floor in the studio because of COVID. We couldn't do that, right?
Yeah.
So basically, I wrote a lot of it guitar and laid guitar and voice down as bed tracks, and then just added bass. And now I'm going to add drums on top of it now.
That's kind of the other thing we talk about a lot on this show is kind of how the pandemic has affected people. And so when things ground to a halt, obviously it sounds like you made some lemonade here. You spent some time making this record that now you can be proud of. But how much of a change did your life go through? Like how much is playing live a part of your regular life?
Well, I mean, it's a big part of it because you're always thinking about the next gig, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't doing a lot of gigs every month, but they were, special gigs that we were doing. We kind of just, we weren't doing ones just for sake of gig, and we wanted to sort of really hone in and do the right kinds of gigs, and bring in a big crowd. I'd rather do that than play a bunch of smaller gigs, But it really put a wrench into things because, I had festival gigs booked, like the Kitchener Jazz and Blues Festival gig booked, and all this other stuff was going on, and you're used to sort of being on that kind of treadmill. I've been on that same treadmill for the last 20, 30 years, you know what I mean? So it was just put a wrench into everything. And I mean, all of a sudden it was like, well, even if you did want to go out and play or plan a tour, you couldn't do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I was lucky because I didn't have a tour plan or something. Like I think of people like, Sarah Harmer had a whole tour planned in the States and stuff, that got canceled. And it was her first record in many, many years too. Yeah. And, and my cousin Nate Coles from Guelph is the same thing. He was like, had all this stuff planned and was making this big push. So, it's in a way, maybe it was harder for indie artists because we don't have big teams and, you know what I mean? To rely on to push our stuff. We're doing it all our own and stuff. So yeah, it's been really disheartening. I got to tell you the truth. I mean, that's major source of income, right? I mean, we're not making any money off the streaming universe, right? Yeah. It's just an obscene model of payment that these streaming companies are basically digital gangsters. Let's face it. Right?
It's awful. I can't believe how exploitive those contracts are. It's unbelievable that it shouldn't even be legal.
Well, it's all backroom deals with the majors, right? Yeah. They got together. That's we'll pay each other big money, but we'll just have a pool for the other people. Yeah. But none of that pool money really makes it down. The old trickle down theory of economics, right? It's like, okay, this isn't going to work.
Did you go through any periods where you were like, I don't know if music is gonna be my thing anymore? Did you reevaluate any of that stuff, or has it caused you to be even stronger in your resolve?
No, absolutely. I went through that. And I I think every artist goes through that at various stages of their career. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like,
Yeah.
but the thing is, it's in your blood. It's not like playing music is a lifestyle. It's not like something you do just
Yeah,
for
it's
money
something
and
you
then
kind of
you're
have
not
to
making
do,
any
right?
money and then you quit. Yeah, it's not. Oh, I'm not making any money. I'm just going to quit now. It's not. And the thing is, I'm a pretty tenacious, determined guy still after all these years. And I what I'm sort of into is songwriting. You know, I'm still into writing good songs and putting them out there. So if other people want to pick up those songs and record them for themselves, I'm okay with that. The performing industry, I've always been a performer, so that's a bit disheartening, but I know it's going to come back, and when it does come back, it's going to come back strong, and I'm just going to reinvent myself, basically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I look forward to still just coming out there and playing live, because it's just such a thrill, you know. It's like you can't pass it up, really, you know.
Yeah, it's just I guess now the big question is how many venues and what do things look like, and when does that happen again?
Well, you know, like all the big guys are, you know, they just shifted everything to 2022 basically, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, guys like Jeff Beck and guys who are still on the touring circuit, that's what they've been doing. But yeah, it's been weird. It's been disheartening and weird. And like I rode my bike along College Street yesterday, you know, through the West End there, and like everything's closed. All these stores are closed. It's like the Great Depression or something. It feels really, really. I feel bad for so many people. You know, not just musicians. I mean, it's like people who are running small businesses and, you know, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I actually just talked to Colin Linden recently about a lot of this stuff, and he said that that it almost feels more important for him to be able to entertain people and stuff when he can, because he knows that what a part of other people's lives his music is, and what he can bring to others. So as much as he gets out of music, he knows that it's important to get out there and do it again for us as well.
Well, that's it. I mean, I just like for me, almost music is kind of community service in some sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're just giving yourself, and I mean, you're not expecting anything in return. If you make money, great. You know, we all got to make a living.
It would be
but
nice.
It's kind of like I'm going to keep doing it. It's a spiritual thing too. I mean, it makes you feel good, and I know for a fact that if I'm not playing my instrument, you know, like for a few weeks, I start feeling really weird and depressed. So it's just this thing that you have to play, and you know, you have to have it in your life. You know what I mean? Or you don't feel good. You don't. It's just helps you relax. And I'm in my head too much if I don't play. You know.
So I know it's hard to plan, and it's hard to know what's going to happen. But do you have a timeline in mind for when we might hear this record?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to wrap up the mixes by springtime, basically. You know. So I mean, I don't know. It's just right now. It's kind of hard to get together. We're going to try recording drums over the next couple of weeks and get some horns on stuff, and then we're ready to mix. So it's really just, you know, timing. Hopefully I'll get it out by spring. Summer's a bit of a strange time to put a record out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But with the COVID thing, it's all changed with the COVID thing, because there won't be a summer touring schedule. People won't be touring.
Yeah.
So the release thing is really different, you know. But like I say, I'm hoping to have it wrapped up by spring and get it out there. I don't like to spend too much time on these. I'm not Steely Dan. You know? I'm finicky when I make records, but not that finicky. It's been really great talking to you, Jeff. It's been nice to talk about John and his music and just music in general, you know?
Yeah. It means a lot to me to be able to talk about these things, and especially to talk about a guy like John, who's I don't know. I just feel like he's this undiscovered gem. He's kind of like not nearly well known enough. So
I know it's a strange thing. That's a strange thing, that John he's kind of buried there somewhere. I don't know, and that's why, you know, it's like, wow, no, he's got a lot of really good songs, man.
Oh, there's,
you know, like
yeah.
he's like he's a magic realist writer, you know. And he's really, and I think we just keep playing his music, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Keep his stuff alive as best we can, you know.
Yeah, and his last record, The Healing Dream, honestly, that's, you know, my second favorite John Bottomley record. I think it was a real return to what I loved about Blackberry so much, you know?
Oh, he's got like some real gems on The Healing Dream. Like For the One I Love, I just love that tune. And there's another one that I think is that For the One I Love, I think is one of the best songs that John ever wrote in his life. It really is a gem, you know.
Songbird strikes a note for the one I love. Swift wing flying home to the one I love.
I really want to thank Chris for providing a lot of information about his brother John and telling us more about himself. As mentioned off the top of the show, you can find a lot of great music and information on his website, chrisbottomley.com. Sadly, John's music is a little harder to find, but you can download a bunch of great albums on iTunes, including Blackberry and John's last record, The Healing Dream. I won't pretend to be able to diagnose John Bottomley, but his story sounds really similar to mine and those of a lot of other people struggling with a mental illness. Those illnesses come with a lot of fears and doubts, but one of the greatest fears is that other people will know that we're struggling. So people dealing with a mental illness or a mood disorder become great liars. We spend a lot of time hiding what's going on in our heads, which makes it really difficult for other people to help us. The problem is that our brains are lying to us all the time and convincing us that nobody wants to help, nobody cares, and it'll never get better. The stress of those messages and trying to hide what's really going on and the fear that others will find out, it often compounds and leads people to consider or go through with suicide. I hope this show can further the conversation about mood disorders and mental illness. But it's really up to you to help by being open and honest with the people around you and making sure that they know that they can do the same with you. It's also really important to check in on anyone you know who might be having a hard time, because the last thing that a person struggling really wants to do is call someone and admit that they have a problem. If any of this sounds like you or someone you know, I urge you to look into medical help. And visiting one of the great organizations listed on the show's website at Fly With Your Shadow could help a lot. I'd really appreciate it if you would share this episode with someone who might find it interesting. And if you're so inclined, leaving a review wherever you found the show would really help. We're now on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Podbean, and of course available at flywithyourshadow.com. I really appreciate everyone who had kind things to say about the first episode last week. If you missed it, please go back and listen to my chat with Leroy Stagger. I genuinely appreciate any comments and feedback that you might have about the show, so please feel free to email me with your thoughts at flywithyourshadow@gmail.com. I hope you enjoyed the show. You can follow us on social media at Fly With Your Shadow, and on our website you can subscribe at flywithyourshadow.com. I also host a music show called Tell the Band to Go Home, where I play a lot of my favorite singer-songwriters like John Bottomley and Chris Bottomley. You can find out more at tellthebandtogohome.com, and you can probably find episodes of that show wherever you found this one. Thanks for listening. I hope you'll join me again next week.
A better day will come. A better day will come. A better day will come.